So back to basics. Back to basics means a lot of different things to different people. Today we're going to focus on living a healthy lifestyle, how you can take control of your life and maybe make some better choices. So today's guest is Dr. Jeb Thurman.
Thank you
Welcome.
for having me. Yeah.
Yes. And Jeb, I've been going to you for a while, mostly for healthy chiropractic visits, but I've known you for, I'd say 7 to 10 years or so.
Yep.
And you have inspired me to take some, better directions on, choices that I've made and things like that. So I wanted to focus a little bit today on where you came from, what got you interested in this stuff, and then also talk a little bit about how we can make some better choices with our lives.
Sure.
So who are you, Jeb?
I knew from the time I was 4 years old that I wanted to be a doctor.
Really?
And it's interesting because I have children now. I have 6 children, and I have a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old and 15, 12, and then 7-year-old twins. And people ask me, how do you guide with them? How do you give them information or advice? And sometimes it's difficult because I knew when I was, and I remember clearly 4 or 5 years old looking at this X-ray, this little X-ray book that my dad had. He was a physician, and he just knew all these bones, and he knew all about the body.
Isn't it cool?
And he would, the neighbors would come over, and they would show him stuff, and he would take a look at it, and he would be comfortable touching them, and they would let him touch them. And I thought, man, what's more cool than knowing about the body?
Right.
That's all we got. At the end of the day, this is what we have. And so to know how it works and to know how to fix it and to know, when you need to go to the hospital or when you need to get something checked out, I just thought there was nothing cooler than that. So throughout my life, and I wasn't a great student, I always thought I was pretty smart, but I didn't always have the best work ethic. And so even though I struggled at times in school, it was all self-induced. I mean, it wasn't because I couldn't figure out material. It was because I hadn't achieved that focus, that academic focus. But I always knew, no matter what I was doing, whether it was taking a year off after high school or struggling through college, I always knew that I was going to be a clinician. There was never an issue. So that was really comforting.
Yeah.
So my path was always sometimes stumbling, sometimes falling, but always moving forward to be a clinician of some sort. And I looked at medicine, I looked at physical therapy, and my father, who's an MD, had always talked a bit disparagingly about chiropractic.
Right.
When I was about 19, he said, "Hey, did you ever think of chiropractic?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I think a lot about it because you've been bashing it my whole life."
Right.
And he said, I've got a couple guys that are working within in the office building that I work in. They're real well trained. They're smart. They're articulate. They ask nice questions. They take good care of their patients. They seem to have nice lifestyles, good hours. And so I saw that he was helping guide me, looking at the big picture. Because when you're 19, you're looking at what do I want to do,
right.
But you don't really understand that you're going to have kids, you're going to have a family. What are the hours you want to work?
Right.
So all of those things was very helpful. And to have his sort of consent was nice to give me that freedom to say, oh, well, let me check this out. And then it just turned out to be a really nice fit for me.
Right. So what is it that you like about being a chiropractor?
I like being able to look at people and figure out what's wrong. I like to be able to do all of those things that he used to do occasionally to the family or friends. I get to do every single day.
Yeah.
And where he was a radiologist, so he was not in front of people every single day. He was looking at X-rays and MRIs, and but I get to look right at you and put my hands on your shoulders or on your back, or I might it might be somebody's upset. I might sit with somebody for a minute and just say, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
This is going to be okay. We're going to figure this out, and then giving them strategies to work through their day, or their week, or their month, or their year, or maybe the rest of their life. I tell people all the time, the things I'm telling you after the adjustment are far more important than the adjustment itself, because they're going to help you manage yourself for the rest of your life. And now sometimes in that moment when they're really hurting and they think that they're they think that they're really broken, and I can say, listen, you're not broken. I see this every day. Number one. Number two, I can help you. So that now they feel great, and that's that peak moment.
Right.
And so that's where that's when people get very, very excited. That's where I build that strong rapport where they're thinking, well, wow, he's great, he saved me. But really sometimes what I want to always emphasize is that it's eating the good food, it's having positive mental attitude, it's moving your body every day. It's these little strategies that you do every day because you spend way more time in your life than you do in my office.
Right.
So even if I saw you every day and adjusted you every day if you needed it, it's nowhere near as powerful as how you live your life.
Right.
And so that's kind of what you've been doing with this show is exposing people to all these different choices that they have. And what I love doing is being able to explain to them or help them navigate this world of wellness and health, because there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of disinformation, and it's not that. Well, I think some people are a bit unscrupulous out there and how they're trying to sell stuff,
Right.
but I think also there are people that are very evangelical about what they're trying to sell, and they believe that they believe it helped them, or they believe it helped their brother-in-law. Or they think that this thing hurt their brother-in-law or their sister-in-law or their mother or their father. And so they're very anti. And after 20 years of being a little evangelical myself, at different times about different topics, I've looked back and said, wow, I've covered, I've got everything surrounded because I had a marshmallow at so many different campfires that sometimes I was totally holding disparate views.
Right.
In other words, I was 180 degrees strong compared to where I am now.
Yeah. What was your anxiety level?
It was high. Well, it was when that's secondary. So
Yeah.
at the time I was okay because I was really excited about what I was doing. But when I got to a point where I had taken all these bits of information and I had been excluding so many different things because there was so much bad out there, that food became a battlefield.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I had to move a certain way, I had to exercise a certain way, I had to think a certain way, and that creates anxiety. So we tell people to do this and do that, and then you multiply that by all the people in your life, or in our lives. That's hundreds of thousands of different thoughts, different pages of different books that you're trying to assimilate. And if you're in crisis, it's impossible.
Oh, it's too much.
You're
It's
gonna
overload.
you're going to get totally swamped.
Yeah.
And so, just to track back a little bit,
Yeah.
I remember as a little boy, I was always a little bit chubby. I was a big kid, but I was a little bit fat, and I wasn't in great shape. And I watched way too much TV, and I ate a lot of junk food.
You were like all of us.
I was, and I think I was. I was also very athletic. I was a very good athlete.
Serious.
But I knew kids. I knew kids whose parents didn't have TV, and there was a difference in them. There's a difference in them academically, and it's not that TV's all bad. Here we are on TV, so I'm not saying that but it was the volume.
Right.
It was the volume of sitting.
Right. And the choices of what you're watching. If it's just mindless.
It was also right, and what I'm being sold by the TV, and all of those things that we see. And so I remember, and I just remember this funny thing. It was another one of these 10 years old, going to get a soda, and looking at the label and going, I don't want to drink this. This has caramel color. What's that? What's making the color? I'll just have a 7-Up because that's clear. So at least it doesn't have something else in it.
Right.
Right. That I think, and that might have been one of the first signs of me sort of thinking, well, it does matter. My grandmother, who lived to be 101, was a total health food fanatic. But she also had nice balance. I mean, she had a big garden, and she exercised moderately, and she had a wonderful relationship with her religion, with her God, and she was very active, and I never saw her be overweight. I always saw her be extremely active, good positive mental attitude, and she would even be considered wacky sometimes because she was but she never put anything on anybody. She'd expose you to everything.
Yeah.
Numerology, astrology, all the ologies, and all the ones that sometimes people get a little bit uncomfortable about. But she didn't expect you to believe it or to engage in it.
Right.
She just liked it.
Right.
And
She gave people a choice.
Right.
So there's a lot of different things out there, but if you don't know about them, then you may not ever take that
Exactly.
step. So that was great. And I bet she was having fun.
She had a great time.
Yeah.
And she lived, I think she finally, she was bringing wood in every day till she was like 99. And then she had had 2 surgeries on her cataracts that were volunteer surgeries. Both of them went bad. So she ended up losing most of her sight. And then she tripped one day fell down, broke her hip, and then it was about a year and a half before she died.
Right.
But I even remember her when she had turned 100, and she was pretty much bedridden. She would get up a little bit, and her boyfriend would help her around. And my mother went over and said, "Mom, I just want to tell you that so-and-so passed away." And she looked up and she said, "How'd she do it?" She was really ready at that point,
Yeah.
you know. So I think
Yeah.
she had I get so many great lessons from her, just on kind of letting go. You know, I'd had a great life. I'm 100 years old,
Right.
and I think she would have been okay at 95. Really, she was pretty content with where she was because she was living a pretty
Right.
good life.
Well-
And so she was also one of my inspirations to seek chiropractic because she used to get chiropractic adjustments on a regular basis. And she took a lot of vitamins, was sort of a big Adele Davis fan, and back in the days of Shackley vitamins, and she just had this very consistent routine. She was taking cod liver oil, all these things a lot of the things that I do now, I talk Dr. Jeb's 5 Basics, are things that she did on a regular
Right.
basis.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
I mean, to have that part of your
It was
life.
consistent.
Right, right.
That doesn't change.
You know, what I'm also hearing is that she appreciated things in life. And I think that when we appreciate what we have and what we've done and the people around us, you're ready. You know, it might take you till you're 101, but you're ready when you're ready to go.
Right.
At least you've done what you could and you've done it the way you wanted to.
Right.
And hopefully you've done it sort of right, you know, in a positive manner.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit more because she sounds like she did a lot of the right things. She exercised, she ate well, you know, she thought about these things. What are some of the things that people can do now to make better choices? I know there's a lot of talk about different vitamins that you can take, and there's that question of multivitamins or not. You know, there's vitamin D, there's magnesium, there's all these kinds of things that people are, again, can get pretty stressed out if you're not taking, you know, the right things. But what is it that you would sort of recommend if people were just coming to you and they were saying, you know, I just need a little bit more energy, or, you know, I need to feel a little healthier?
I would tell them that there's 5 basic, you know, supplements that I think everybody should do. But that before they do them, there's 3 things that they should do. And those 3 things are that you need to move every day. You need to have a positive mental attitude. We already talked about that. So you need to appreciate yourself. You can't say somebody wants to, and I don't care what it is. Maybe you want to gain weight. Maybe you want to lose weight. Whatever it is that you think you need to change about yourself, and for whatever your reasons, you need to love yourself first. Because if you say, I'll love myself better when I lose 40 pounds, then why would you want to do that for somebody you don't really love? Right. So you're doing it, you're loving yourself, and then the right choices get made. And then it may be that, wow, I don't need to lose 40 pounds. That wasn't it. I need to love myself. So we need to have, I think that's really probably number one. And then we need to get out and move every day. And I have a sort of a theory, and I think it's supported somewhat in the literature, and please don't call in and ask Jody to get I'm not going to point at you at a study. But I think that there are some indications, aside from gross obesity, okay, when people are a bit overweight, I think a lot of the health problems that stem from that are from the things that they did to get that way more than being that way. Right. So they're not moving. They're sitting too much. They're probably eating too much of a certain kind of food, not necessarily a wrong food, but maybe they're not eating enough of a blend of food, so they're not getting enough fresh fruits and vegetables. Maybe they're eating too many fresh fruits and vegetables. Maybe they're eating too much fruit and they're not enough vegetables. Maybe they're eating too many grains but not enough protein. Maybe they're eating too much fat. Maybe they're trying to do a fad diet, and so they're eating one certain way and they're excluding everything else. Or maybe they were doing what I did when I was going to all these different sort of places. The deeper I got into these things, the more things there were that I couldn't eat. Right. So my diet got so restrictive, and I kept thinking, well, if I get it more restrictive, I'll feel better. If I get it more restrictive,
control.
I can control it all. And that produced a lot of anxiety for me. And when I just, about a year and a half ago, I stopped doing that. And what I realized was immediately I felt so much happier, and I was so much easier to be around. And I think I was okay to be around before, but I didn't have that same level of internal anxiety that I was having when I was trying to control every single piece about my diet, my kids' diet, my family's diet, and everybody else's diet, and being evangelical to the point where, you know, I would judge somebody in the grocery store for what they had in their grocery basket instead of loving them for who they are,
Right.
and then hoping that they're happy because
Right.
maybe what they're doing is exactly right for them. Because ultimately, there's so many ways to eat right.
Right.
Right? There's
Right.
so many ways to eat correctly, and so many of them are so opposite that they all can't be right.
Well, high carb, low carb.
They all can't be right.
Yeah.
And they all can't be wrong.
Right.
Vegan and paleo. They all
Right.
can't be right. They all can't be wrong.
Exactly.
What you have to come to the conclusion is they're either all right or they're all wrong, or they're all right for somebody. And they may be right for different people at different
Right.
times in their
Yeah,
lives.
and we are all different.
We're different, and then
Yeah.
we age, and then we have high energy needs. We have high metabolic. Sometimes where our metabolism is higher, and sometimes it's lower. Needs to be stoked. Needs to be calmed down, but can be fed more. So I think when we look at that from that perspective, we have to start saying, and back to what do people do? You got to move your body. You have to eat good food that makes you feel good. And you have to have a good, loving attitude and positive mental attitude. I think if you start with those, and you're doing those consistently, in your heart of hearts, you know that you're doing those, then I think a good omega oil. I prefer fish oil, but if you want to do flax and hemp, that's fine. I think
Right.
there's some reasons why I would do a blend of both. But if you're a vegan and that it's important to you, then I would say, well, maybe research some of the algae-based omega-3s, and then you could combine that with the hemp and the flax.
Yeah. Let me just ask you one
Yeah.
question. What is the differences of fish oils? Because fish oils are not all the same, just so that people know.
Yeah, they're not all the same, and that is the companies that produce a triglyceride-based fish oil will tell you that theirs are best. They'll tell you that theirs are more stable. So when oil comes out of a fish, it's in a triglyceride form. When they distill it down and clean it up, it gets broken down into some other parts. If they don't kind of put it back together, it's in a form that I have read is less stable. Now, some people will defend it and say, no, it's absolutely fine, it does just as well. And actually, most of the fish oil out there is in that more unstable form.
Right.
What I can tell you from my personal experience is that when I have bad fish oil, when I have fish oil that I consider to have a strong odor and to repeat on me and to just give me a kind of a sickly feeling, it's never been a triglyceride form. It's always been an ethyl ester form, which is what most of them are. So there are a few different companies that make a specifically triglyceride form, which is, I think, a little bit more costly. They're not terribly much more expensive, but certainly they are than a basic, if you go to your drugstore or your big box store and you get the off-the-shelf, I would say you might be better off not using that for a number of reasons.
Right.
So the difference comes the sourcing, the process, and then how old it is, and how well it's been protected from oxidation so that it doesn't have a strong fishy smell. Bottom line is, if you're taking fish oil and it's making you burp and you're burping up fishy burps,
Yeah.
it's probably not good fish oil.
Yeah.
At least not good for you.
Yeah, that's great. So another vitamin is vitamin D. That's a big thing right now, especially like at my age. These are some of the things that I've been told. Vitamin D, fish oil.
Yeah.
Take a multivitamin, which are things that we've always done. But what about vitamin D?
Vitamin D is one of those things. Again, if you go to the Vitamin D Council, you can Google that online or just look up the Vitamin D Council. They have some great recommendations. In my practice, I typically tell people that 2,000 a day is perfectly fine to do all year, unless you've had a test that showed that you were way over. But most people aren't going to be that. I don't really think that even if your levels were normal and you still took 2,000 a day, I think you'd be fine. That's 2,000 international units. I personally take more than that. I take maybe 6,000 to 10,000 a day during the winter months, and then I probably cut back to maybe 2,000 a day. Sometimes not at all if I've been in the sun. But what people don't realize sometimes is that in order to get your vitamin D for the day, which is sort of depends on the person, but say 2,000 to 10,000 international units, you would need to be in the sun for about 20 minutes. You don't need to be more than that, but you need to be in a bikini or bathing suit
Right.
or with nothing on.
Right.
To really get it. So just walking across the parking lot doesn't do it.
Or wearing a hat and just having your face.
Yeah, it doesn't do it. So
Yeah.
so vitamin D levels can be down. I think ultimately it's best to talk to your doctor, get a blood test, see what your levels are. There's a lot of, there's always information. There's people out there that say, well, I don't think you should do any exogenous vitamin D3. The research doesn't really support it. This has been sort of thrust upon us. I can tell you that this is just my personal experience. when I started supplementing with vitamin D3 in my family, and I never did test our blood levels, I have never seen any supplement, and this is everything, vitamin C, vitamin A, golden seal, echinacea, all the elderberry, all the things that people do, nothing has made a difference like vitamin D3 has to my family. And a number of my patients have told me that. And this is not taking 10,000 a day. This is taking 2,000 to 6,000 a day, mostly in the wintertime. I just have never seen anything. Is it that? Is it placebo? I don't know, but it's working for me, so I'm going to keep doing that.
Yeah, yeah. Are there any other vitamins that you might think of that we haven't really thought about?
Well, so the 5 basics, I'll go back to that. There are,
yeah.
I don't prescribe a lot of specific vitamins, and I don't really prescribe anything. I recommend things to people. I recommend a fish oil. I recommend a vitamin D3 supplement. I recommend a probiotic. I think it's the best compliance comes from a capsule or a pearl or a pill or a powder. It's that you're going to get them right in there. You can take them on an empty stomach. They're going to get in and they're going to inoculate with these good critters that are good for our bellies.
Yep.
So an antioxidant, a good antioxidant blend. I don't think you need to load up on 20 or 30 different pills, but a good antioxidant blend. Maybe it has some botanicals, some garlic, curcumin. These things which are kind of wholesome, natural, food-based supplements that are providing a lot of antioxidant matrix.
Right.
It's good to eat, I think, an assortment of colorful foods. You've heard that.
Yeah.
Eat the color, eat the rainbow. Again, because of these antioxidants that are so good at protecting our genetic material and sort of calming down this oxidative effect, this kind of burning effect that happens in us, that things can get a little bit, that's what really causes aging.
Yeah.
I don't think that I don't think it's anti-aging. I think the anti-aging thing is another thing that's preying on our ego and our desire, our sort of, we have this sort of culture that's very fixated on being young and staying young. And I love to feel young, and I love to be vital, but I know that I'm getting older. I turned 50 and I feel good, and I kind of like being 50.
Yeah.
And I do things that I think will make me stronger and better today and tomorrow. And I think that will help me stay stronger and better for as many years as I have. As I have. So the last one is I put a multi, but I actually kind of don't do the multi as much as I used to as a because I think within this group and eating good foods, I think I'm taking care of that.
Right. So you're getting food vitamins instead of having to take a pill. Like for me, I always feel that eating food is better than taking just a pill. Like I don't want to become one of these people that just pops pills all the time.
Right.
So, if you can do something like I make kefir, that's my probiotic.
Well, there's your probiotic.
Right. And I don't have to take a pill for that.
No, but I would say, the only place I would argue, and I would say, and I might be wrong, excuse me, but if you ended up having to be on antibiotics because you got sick, and you really had a bacterial infection that needed to be hit with some antibiotics, and you were on that, and you started to get some yeast, and you started to get some diarrhea maybe, and you weren't feeling very good, your belly's upset, I would say, listen, you need to really replenish, and I'm not sure the kefir is going to be able to do that, because you sort of have to play a much stronger version of those probiotics than because you took a very strong antibiotic.
Right.
So that disrupts those normal critters, so you got to put the compost back. So it's like amending a garden that's been left for a few years.
And that's why taking a probiotic, especially if you're taking some kind of antibiotic, to get that balance back there.
But in
really
general,
is
I agree
important.
with you that doing things like kefir and kimchi and the sort of lacto-fermented foods that are going to give you a greater chance to it's just compost. It's like you're just composting your garden every day, and you're just layering the leaves, and you're making all the earthworms are happy, and the critters are all happy.
Yeah.
And so that's a much better way to live, and it just feels better.
Oh, totally. So, what we've talked about today is fruits and vegetables. I like frozen if I can't get them in season, but fresh vegetables are usually better for you. And like some of the canned vegetables, like I grew up with canned vegetables, and now I can't believe that we used to eat all these canned vegetables and things like that, but frozen is so much better for you. Good fats. Fats are not bad. You shouldn't be scared of eating fats as long as you're eating good fats.
Right.
And nuts and things like that. And I got a little bit out of some of the articles that you've written in the Shopper, and grass-fed. Instead
Right.
of eating things that are grain, fed or whatever, or supplements and things like that, eating grass-fed,
Right.
beef and pork
Yep.
and chickens and fresh eggs.
The-
There's so much that you can get
yeah,
out
and
there.
I think when I, back in there was time where I would be very, 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 very specific about these ways you had to eat or had to move or had to do. And then when I had my little sort of aha moment last a year ago fall, and I really released the hounds and I ate everything I wanted to eat whenever I wanted to eat it, and it wasn't all organic, wasn't all fresh, wasn't all local.
No.
But as I sort of fed that little boy who had been restricting himself for years and years and was happier and feeling better, I was able to come to a place which says, listen, fresh, local first.
Right.
If it can be organic, great. If it can be, I think non-GMO, you're probably going to be there because it's fresh and local. And just relax.
Yeah.
Relax around food. Buy food from your local merchants and your farmers and the people that are making things, the local artisans.
Or grow your own.
Or grow your own.
Yeah, I mean, like, we have
Yeah.
chickens. I have bees.
Yeah.
We have a garden.
Yeah.
These are things that you can do for yourself, and you don't have to have
Sure.
a huge garden.
No.
But like you said, go to the farmers markets, buy local. I mean, what
Yeah,
could be
fresh
better?
raw-
Go
we
to
have
your
fresh
food
raw
co-ops.
milk, we have fresh beef, we have all these great sources at the
Right.
farmers market, and then at Hannah Grimes carries, and then the co-op
Blueberry
certainly,
Field, the
Blueberry
co-op.
Fields and
Yeah,
the co-op. So
yeah.
we have this wonderful resources
Yeah.
now, and we should really take advantage of those. Again, that's your first choice, but I understand going to the
Totally.
big grocery stores for your
Yeah.
staples. That makes
Right,
sense.
right, yeah. So thank you very much, Jeb.
You're
This
very
has been
welcome.
wonderful today. We've talked about so many
Yeah.
different things. And, it's not just about being a chiropractor. I
No,
mean, there's
no.
more to life. And so thank you for being a nutritional and healthy
yeah.
living
Oh, yeah.
advocate.
You're
so
welcome.
you do have a website.
I
Your
do.
website is?
It's www.evolutionchiro.com. That's EVOLUTIONCHIRO.
You can Google it, too.
Evolution Chiro.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
can Google my name, Jeff
Yep.
Thurmond, or
Yeah.
Evolution, or even just chiropractors in Keene, and I'll come up.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So another little thing that I've gotten out of some of your articles that you
Yeah.
had mentioned: health, wealth, happiness, and joy. Get outside. And one of the things that you said was, "Have you ever felt worse after taking time to get outside and breathe some fresh air?"
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It's
Never.
great. No.
Never.
So today we have been back to basics. I want you to go out and love your life, live well, and make good choices. So we'll see you soon. Thanks.